No, Hashem, except for ourselves. Become pre-disturbed. Just keeps going. It's like a good YouTube short. You know, there's a trick to the shorts where you take the beginning and you cut it and put it at the end. Yeah, I learned this trick. Yes, I got a haircut, Mazel Tov. I cut my hair. Actually did it. I cut my own hair. That's part of it. And I don't know, just time. Everything in my life is time and energy. Whether I have time and I have energy. Either I have time, I don't have energy. I have energy, I don't have time. Sometimes the two of them come together and I have really productive days. And I get tired just when I run out of energy. I run out of time. But other times I have to push and other times I run out of time. So the haircut, it's like, wow, it's really hard for me to get around to cutting my hair because it's like such a trivial thing, but gotta do it. Oh, Hashem. Okay, so exciting news. We're going to start a new lesson tonight. Bezat Hashem. Say hi first to Zahava and Yael. And Chana, I don't know if she's still online. Chana, who's originally from Germany, and I was telling Aryeh that a couple that came to the lesson a few times, they asked me to say the seventh bracha at the wedding, which I really enjoyed doing. I told all my kids they can't get married without me having the seventh bracha under the chuppah. And so we had two so far, Baruch Hashem. And there have been people that asked me to do at their wedding, so Chana was one of them. It was in Bad Ayin. And I remember, I don't know how to get to Bad Ayin, and I took one wrong turn. It took me another hour to get there. And I literally got there. That was during Corona. So I get there and it's outdoors, and they say to me, "What's your name?" And I tell them my name. They say, "Wait a minute, you need a mask." I said, "No, they're on the seventh bracha. I have to run to the chuppah." I literally got there as they're calling my name. I'm running in the field, and I made it. Oh Hashem. Okay, I was talking with David today. David was my teacher from when I was here in high school. I don't know. They say Shalom Aleichem to my mother. Okay, to my mother and Avital. And Shechina Batsheva and Katie, and is Katie there? No, and Joe's watching. Everybody joined us as Hashem. So David was my teacher in high school, and we talk every now and then. We also watch his lesson I don't know if he watches all the time, but he usually corrects me when I make a mistake in Hebrew or the text. And I said to him, how are you preparing for this war? Because I bought a solar panel, October 8th, I bought a solar panel. Just to make sure, a solar panel and a little battery. So if there was absolutely no electricity, I'd have something to at least charge a phone with, charge some battery. Then I got a few more batteries. He said, I'm not doing anything. I'm not even stocking up water. But this is a guy who can live off of very little. I don't know, we'll see what's going to be. Okay, so we're going to be learning now for the next several weeks, I'm assuming, maybe even a couple months. Torah Samech Bet, which is 62. And it's actually not such a long lesson, but we kind of go slow. And we really learn the Yun, we learn in detail. So however long it takes, and what's the rush? We finish this lesson, we go to another lesson. So however long it takes, it takes. This is Lashon Rabbeinu Zichrono Livracha. And when it says that, it means that literally it was either verbatim given word for word and it was written down, but this happens to be a manuscript that Rebbe Nachman wrote down and that was discovered after he died. There were several lessons that he had written down and that he hadn't given in public, and they were discovered after he died, and this is one of them. Now, Rebbe Nachman died young. He was 38. Some say he was 37. Some say he was 39. But we'll say 38. And he died in 1810. And he had tuberculosis, and he suffered a lot. And he also fasted. He would fast from Shabbos to Shabbos. How somebody can do that, I really don't know. I mean, did he drink water? Did he have anything? I have no idea. I don't know how a physical person could do that. But when he was also giving the lessons and writing these lessons, he was wearing his tefillin. So we know that, Rebbe Nachman was very exalted tzaddik, a great tzaddik. And when you consider, when I went on my tour in Ukraine of tzaddikim, there were literally hundreds, maybe thousands of tzaddikim that you could visit just in Ukraine. And of all of them, everybody wants to go to the Baal Shem Tov, and everybody wants to go to Rebbe Nachman. Those are two big names. There's the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, and there's big names, Reb Zusha, but very few, considering how many great tzaddikim there were. Rebbe Nachman is one of these powerhouses that is also getting stronger and stronger as we get further away from when he died. Like his impact is bigger and bigger and bigger, not just in our little bubble here, but you see everywhere, more and more people are exposed to Rebbe Nachman's lessons. So this is a lesson, you can imagine him sitting in some broken down house, very thin, not in good health, having fasted for a few days, wearing his tefillin, and these holy thoughts are coming into his head, and he's just writing them down as they come down, and that's what we're reading. We're reading with the perush, with the explanation, but those are the Torahs that we're reading, and if it was just anyone, we would say he's a fool. But this is the real thing. This is the real thing of the real thing. And it's very special that, he really revealed to us, in a sense, secrets in order to help us in this world, whatever a human being can understand. So, Lashon Rabbeinu Zichrono Livracha. Rabbeinu Zal Makdim et pasuk. He opens up with the following verse from Sefer Shmot, Yud Gimel 13, Yud Chet 18. Vayisev Elokim et ha'am. Hashem took the Jewish people when they took them out of Egypt. He took them in the roundabout way. Derech Midbar Yam Suf. By way of the desert, by the Red Sea. The Chamushim Alu B'nei Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim. We know there's lots of meanings between Chamushim, that they left armed, they left a fifth, that they left what other Chamushim, whatever. Chamushim comes from Chamesh, from 5, and to be Chamush is holding a weapon. So, Ubesof Torah Yivaer Haremez Bet Pasuk. And at the end of the Torah, he's going to explain the connection to what we started with. And now you remember we were learning the last lesson, Chaf Dalet 24. We started off with the finger of Hashem. We went way into the Sfirot, and we went into doing mitzvahs with Simcha and how it affects all the worlds. And then in the end, he comes back to the original phrase. So we're going to have the same thing here when we get to the end, Bezat Hashem. על ידי אכילה בקדושה זוכים לעשות ייחוד קודשא בריחו ושכינתה. Through eating in a holy way, we merit to make a unification between Hashem and His Shechina. So we know, we've learned a lot about Hashem and the Shechina, the Chalal HaPanoi, the empty vacant space that we're in. What does it mean to make a unification with Hashem and the Shechina? So Hashem is, in a sense, the energy that's outside of this world, and the Shechina is Hashem's presence revealed in this world, even though Hashem is also in this world. But what is the Shechina? It's Hashem's energy revealed in, for example, when a person does a mitzvah. So when I drink this water, I already said a bracha, but if I would say, Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, she'akol niya b'dvaro, chaim. First of all, that's achila, it's really shtia, but it's achila, that's eating b'kedusha, with holiness. So what does it mean to eat in a holy way? It means that the food that you're eating is kosher, and it means that you're doing it in a kosher way. Because a person, for example, could say, well, wine is kosher, and I'm allowed to drink wine. I mean, we make kiddush on everything, so why can't I drink 5 bottles of wine? Isn't that being stricter in the mitzvah of drinking wine? Doesn't it say, what does it say in Tehillim or Mishlei, that there's no simcha except for meat and wine? That's the only, ein simcha ela basar v'yayin. And so a person says, so I'm going to eat lots of meat and I'm going to drink lots of wine. I'm going to be like really mahadrin in doing this mitzvah. That's already being a glutton. The wine is permitted to you, but getting drunk you're not supposed to do. Not even on Purim. And every time I tell this to somebody, they say, no. It says you're supposed to get drunk on Purim. And I said, right, drunk on Purim. They're like, oh, never thought of that. It doesn't say have to get drunk on wine. You have to drink until you don't know. So the person can take it in the wrong direction. That's eating in holiness, v'kedusha. And unifying Hashem and the Shechina is when we do the mitzvah. What am I doing? I'm pulling out from wherever there is in space and time and space the infinite light, which is what we learned in the last lesson, the infinite light, and I'm bringing it into this finite world by saying a bracha, by eating or drinking something that's kosher. That's it. You would think, well, what a simple little thing. All I'm doing is eating, and I'm bringing the unification of Hashem and His presence in this world. And the answer is yes. That's all you have to do. But you have to do it with the right intention, and you have to do it as much as you can. Okay, so that's where we're starting. Da she'al yedei achilatam shel Yisrael, you should know through the eating of the Jewish people, not that they're eating somebody or something, they're eating the food that the Jewish people eat b'kedusha u'b'kashrut ha'machal. When they eat it in a holy way and they eat kosher food, na'aseh yichud kudshah b'yichu u'shchinte anpin be'anpin. Yichud ha'kadosh baruch hu v'ashchina panim be'panim. You're creating a unification of Hashem and the Shechina face to face. You are literally bringing Hashem's presence into this world by doing that. And if you think about it, you're bringing the physical and the spiritual together through eating. There are probably some other things like that. I guess the mitzvah tefillin, when a couple is married and they have a child, that's bringing physical, spiritual into the physical. But eating is something that we do like all the time on a regular basis. And every time we're eating, we are bringing this holiness into the physical world, into the most mundane thing. Whenever I'm in the shuk and I'm at Teller, for example, the bakery, and I'm waiting in line, I see some secular guy grabs a roll and just starts eating it. Just grabs it and eats it. And he says, how much is this? They'll say 5 shekels. And he's like, here's your 5 shekels. And I'm like, you're not going to wash and say a bracha? Like, how could you just grab bread and just eat it like that? And how much is it? So that's eating with holiness. And you're creating this unification of face-to-face. B'bchinat ha'ketuv, as it's written in Sefer Ruth, v'yomer Boaz leRut le'et ha'ochel goshi halom. And Boaz, I love the name Boaz, by the way. Boaz, you know the word krembo? What does it mean? Cream in it. Krem bo. And here we have Boaz. He has strength in him. That's what his name means. Boaz. I don't know what the root means. But Boaz, I know what Naomi means. Naomi is the pleasant one. Okay, so this is the book that we read on Shavuot. But Yomer Boaz LaRut, Boaz says to Ruth, at the time that everyone in the field, his workers, are eating, go over there and approach them. Boaz v'Ruth hem b'chinat sfirot yesod u'malchut. Boaz and Ruth are the connection between the sfira of Yesod and the sfira of Malchut, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Shechina. And since I still have the map in here, we can see over here Malchut and Yesod. So we're bringing together this level and this level. That's what he's talking about when he says we're bringing together Boaz and Ruth. You're bringing together the lower level and a level above it. And now he says he's going to bring a text proof for this, but we're not going to spend too much time on this idea. We're soon going to get into something else. So that's bring Hashem and the Shechina together. Le'eta ochen daika, specifically when you're eating. Hainu al yedei achila. That is, how do we bring together the Shechina and Hashem? We do it through eating. And when Boaz spoke to Ruth, he was bringing together these two sfirot as well. Goshi halom, go and approach them over there. Da yichud kucha b'ichu u'shchinte. Ze yichud shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'shchinato. This is the unification between the Shechina, Hashem's presence in this world, the presence that's accessible to us through doing it Torah and mitzvot, and Hashem, which is the force that's creating everything all the time and more. I learned that and more from Rabbi David Aaron when I interviewed him. I said, please define Hashem to me. He said, Hashem is the force of everything that's creating everything all the time and more. And he said, if you don't add the and more, you're limiting Hashem. So you have to add even and more. By the way, if you haven't listened to that episode on Jewish people and ideas, it turned out to be one of like the fundamental, you want to understand Judaism, listen to this 45-minute lesson with the interview with him. Was really great. Ki tevat goshi, the word goshi, meaning go and approach, meramezet al yichud, hints at a unification. B'bchinat hakatuv, as it's written in Bereshit, vayigash alav Yehuda. Yehuda approached Yosef. This is when the brothers were coming, and Binyamin was being held back. Binyamin, of course, being the youngest son of Yitzchak, Yaakov, and that it was Yosef's brother, and he said, bring my father here, and I'll release this boy. And Yehuda comes, and Yehuda symbolizes kingship, malchut. So he says, with the Shuba Zohar, the parashat Vayigash, and the Zohar teaches regarding this parasha, Zo itkarvut melech b'melech. When Yehuda approached Yosef, it was a king approaching a king. Perush Yehuda sheshorsho sfirat malchut itached im Yosef sheshorsho sfirat hayesod. So once again, we have this unification of Yesod and Malchut. Malchut being the lower, and Yesod being the higher. Nimtzah shevayigash. So this is his text proof. This is why he's saying Goshi halom, when Boaz says to Ruth, go and approach the workers and go and eat. And he's saying, I'm proving everything that I'm saying through text proofs here, and I'm saying that the eating actually creates an elevation between Hashem and the Shechina. Nimtzah shevayigash רומז על ייחוד יסוד ומלכות מבחינת ייחוד של הקדוש ברוך הוא ושכינתו. That is the unification between Hashem and His presence in this world. ולכן גם גושי הלום, and also the words go, approach the workers to eat something. רומז על ייחוד הקדוש ברוך הוא והשכינה is also a hint to Hashem and the Shechina. כי תיבות הלום מרמזת על מלכות, it's also hinted at in the word halom, that there's malchut in there, there's kingship in there. And this is done at the time of eating. That is through eating. When does this unification happen? It happens when we eat, because we're taking something physical, we're putting it into our physical body, but we're saying a blessing before it, and ultimately we're doing it for the purpose of doing a mitzvah. I'm very blessed to have a very special chavruta, and thank God he's been healthy for many months now, should continue to be. And he tells me stories about the home that he grew up in. So his father, Binyamin Zev Cheshin, you can find some videos of him on YouTube. He was a well-known tzaddik. I don't know when he passed away, probably in the 70s. And he traveled all around the country and taught all around the country. And he would travel and collect money. Really a very special guy. One of the beautiful things that I like about what Rav Cheshin said about his father, he said he wrote his what would be on his tombstone. He didn't want any praises on his tombstone. He just wanted his name and his parents' names and the date that he died. And that's it. And so his kids were really kind of frustrated because he was already very old and in the hospital. It was clear that he wasn't going to come out. Hi Katie, welcome. Okay, you didn't miss too much. I'm doing a lot of talking and catching up. So just for Katie, and then I'll get back to what I was saying. We learned that when you eat in a holy and kosher way, you unify Hashem and the Shechina. And it'll become clear in a second. So Rav Cheshin, his father, I was talking about his father before he passed away, said, I just want my name and the date that I died. And one of his sons said, what if we write Chasid Breslav? Breslav or Chassid. He said, that you can write. Because when I get up to the heavenly court, if they say to me, were you really a Breslav or Chassid? I could say, at least I tried to be. He said, any other praises? So we talked about Reb Shalom and what I said at his funeral, right? We talked about it here. And so any praises that you write on somebody's tombstone, you have to be very careful with, because they're going to have to account for them in the world to come. Rabbi Ari Levine, there's a whole story of him that basically there was somebody that came and was handing out money. It was a time when people were starving. There was $1,000 for Rabbi Ari Levine, and he didn't want to give it to him because he wasn't sure he was the only Ari Levine. In the meantime, Rabbi Ari Levine's son died of starvation, and the next day this guy shows up to give the money, this guy from America, and he says, what's the point? You give me this money, but my son died. You could have saved his life. And the next day this guy died. Yeah. You don't mess with a tzaddik. Not that he caused it, but there's real consequences to stuff like that. And everybody praised this tzedakah giver from America. What a tzaddik, what a tzaddik, what a tzaddik. And Rabbi Ari Levine said, when I die, I don't want any esfadim. I don't want any eulogies. And he died in Nisan, when the custom is we don't eulogize in Nisan. Awesome story, right? That's the short version. Okay, so Rav Cheshin tells me that his father, every time before they would eat something, he would, I don't remember the exact words, but they would say that this food is in order to strengthen my body so that I can learn Torah and do mitzvot. He said, for us, that was just we didn't even think about it. This food is in order to strengthen my body, to learn Torah and to do mitzvot. He said, imagine growing up in a home where that's the regular thing that you say. And that's really what the lesson is here. That when we're taking, this part of the lesson at least, when we're taking food and we're bringing it into our body, we're doing it in order to strengthen the body so that we can learn Torah and do mitzvot. I'll just give you one more side note before I continue here about Rav Cheshin, because I like these stories, they inspire me. So recently there was somebody who came to him that was very wealthy. Many tens of millions of dollars, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars. Haredi guy from America, a young guy that inherited or whatever, he's running a big business. And Shalom to Simcha, Shalom Aleichem. And Reb Cheshin wasn't very impressed with the guy's money. And he reads palms. So he's sitting there reading his palm. If anyone knows how to read palms, you can read my palm. I have no idea what it means. I don't care. Just yesterday he says to me, oh, show me those 2 lines. Over there, those 2 lines. I'm like, what, these 2 lines? Yeah, those 2. Oh. I don't even want to know what he saw. I could care less. It won't help me. It won't change anything. Okay. So this guy, after he tells him how much money he has, and he's going to give him a lot of money for reading his palm and his face and whatever, giving him advice, he sees that Reb Cheshin wasn't impressed by his money. And that made an impression on the wealthy guy. He said, how can it be that you're not impressed? I told you, I just made a deal. I made $50 million. How can that not impress you? He said, let me tell you about real wealth. When I would wake up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom when I was a kid, I would see my father sitting on the floor, crying over the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, davening to Hashem that the temple be rebuilt. He said $50 million couldn't buy that memory. And I have that memory. I thought that was just beautiful. Okay? That I just wanted to share it. Share it with you and share it with anybody who's listening. Anyone who gets to watch these lessons, they're very lucky. I don't think very many people actually watch them. Just like a lot of stuff I write and I do, I feel like not very many people are exposed to them, but whoever is, I think they're very fortunate. Okay. רק שהאכילה צריך להיות מאכל אחר שנתברר. But the food that you're eating has to be food that's already been clarified or elevated. Right? Biro is to separate. So we're pulling out the good from the bad. האכילה שמקרבת ועושה את הייחוד בין הקדוש ברוך הוא והשכינה. The type of eating that brings one closer and makes a unification between Hashem and His Shechina. Hi rak she'ochel ma'achal mivurar. It's only when a person eats something that has been clarified or elevated. Ve'en bo shum ta'arovot, and there's nothing mixed in with it. She'nitbarer me'achizat hara ba'klipot bo. That it's elevated or clarified from the holding on of the evil and the negative energy that's within a person. V'nit arvu al yedei ha'achilato shel ha'adam harishon me'etz hadat. And these things are inside of us from the original eating of the primal man, meaning Adam harishon, Adam, when he ate from the tree of good and evil. So that eating caused this good and evil. My cheesy potatoes are elevated. That's what Yael said. I think they are. They're worth at least $50 million. The only thing is they can't sell them on Shabbos. When a person eats something that's been elevated, okay, yeah, we said that. It elevates, it creates this unification. Because when we eat something, it has mixed in it some of the klipa, the negative energy, and evil. And so if a person eats something that they shouldn't be eating, or they eat it in a way that they shouldn't. For example, I gave the example of wine or meat, just eating tons and tons of meat and being a glutton, drinking tons of wine and becoming drunk. Those are things that are permitted, but now there's a tarovet, there's a mixture in it. You're not just doing it for a pure, holy purpose. And that can lead a person to sin, God forbid. ואז אדרבה על ידי החטאים נעשה כביכול פירוד בין הקדוש ברוך הוא והשכינה. And then on the contrary, there is a separation created. Instead of a unification, there's a separation created between Hashem and the Shechina. ומיד יבאר כיצד מבארים את המאכל. And immediately we're going to explain how do we clarify and elevate the food that we're going to eat. So now, that's the beginning of the lesson, and now we're going to spend some time talking about a different idea. יבאר באיזה קושיות באמונה מותר לעניין בהם בשכלו ולהשיב עליהם תשובה. We're going to learn now which questions regarding emunah, faith in Hashem, is it permitted for a person to ask in their mind and to give an answer to them. ובאיזה אסור לעניין בהם כלל. And which ones are you forbidden to ask about at all? והבירור של המאכלים מהרע והקליפות שבהם הוא על ידי אמונה. How do we elevate the food that we're eating from amongst the negative energy and the klipot and the evil? We do it through emunah. We do it through faith. So now he's going to talk about emunah, because if we're doing it through emunah and our emunah is not complete, then we won't be able to eat in a proper way, and we won't be able to create the unification of the Shechina and Hashem. So he starts off, he says, this is what you do just by eating. But how do you make sure that the food that you're eating is going to make this real unification? It's through your emunah. So now he says, let's talk about emunah. Right, we weren't going to have a whole class about eating. We're going to, of course, have a class about emunah. I'm sure it'll go into other places as well. Shehi mevereret et nitzotzot. The faith pulls out, clarifies, elevates the sparks hakedusha of holiness sheyesh b'chol davar, that there is within everything. Perush, the meaning is al yedei shemishtamesh bekoach ha'emunah neged hakushiyot haba'ot me'aklipot, by using the power of faith in Hashem to fight back against the questions that come from the negative energy. Ubasechen keneged hakushiyot haba'ot me'klipot noga. I'm guessing if my in-laws knew the meaning of how much noga comes up in Chassidus, they probably would have given my wife a different name. And in your intellect, you're going to the thoughts that you have, you're going to use to push back against the questions that come from klipat noga, sheyesh lehem tshuva, that they have an answer. So klipat noga, this is a concept in Chabad Chassidus and in all of Chassidus. It means it is a totally neutral type of energy. For example, money. Money can be used to gamble, and money can be used to give tzedakah. The same exact money can be used to do one thing that's bad and to do one thing that's incredibly good. And so it holds this middle energy. You could say wine is the same thing. You can't say, for example, bacon, like pork bacon, that's something that's completely forbidden. And you can't say a Sefer Torah, that's something that's completely kosher. It has to be something in between. That's called klipat noga. So sex could be klipat noga, wine could be klipat noga, food can be klipat noga, power, for example, an army, or influence, all of these things. So what it means is that the line is literally in the middle, and how are you using it? Are you using it for good or using it for bad? And that's why he's bringing it up here. So there are some questions that come from this truly middle space, this honest, neutral space, and we can have answers for those things. Uvarer b'neihem b'ma l'ishtamesh im hasechel ub'ma im ha'emunah. So he's going to explain what things we're going to use our intellect to understand, and what things we're just going to have to simply say, can't understand it, I'm going to have to trust in Hashem. For example, a person could ask, why did Hashem create the world? So we say, Hashem created the world, and we know this from all the lessons that we learned, so that we can choose between good and evil. So that we can have a playground for our soul to be challenged and to choose between good and bad. And then the soul goes back up, and it gives an accounting of what it did in this world. And Hashem says, Yashar, you chose more good than bad, hopefully. Or the other way, come down and have another round in this world. That's we can understand why the world was created. But you can say, but why does Hashem, who's all-powerful and creates everything all the time, why does he need to do such a thing? Why can't he just give the reward without bringing our souls into this world? And that we don't have an answer for. And that you'll just have to say, well, I just trust that Hashem has his reasons for it. She ba'atzmo, we're going to stop in just a couple of minutes. We're going to pause, not going to stop. We're going to pause in a couple of minutes, and we'll come back to this next week. I'm going to tell a short story. And this is the clarification of the elevation of food, the food that you're eating. Ki ha'emet shegam b'inyanei amunah, because the truth is also in matters of faith, ma shehigdil Hashem yitbarach l'sechel higbil, מה שהגביל Hashem יתברך לשכל האנושי שיוכל להבין, what Hashem limited the human intellect to understand, הוא מצווה גדולה לחדד השכל. What Hashem allowed us to understand, it's a great mitzvah to use our brain, to sharpen our brain, להבין הדבר an buyo, to understand what a human can understand. So, for example, why are people sitting and learning Gemara all the time? And learning Gemara is very difficult to do. It's in order to clarify your human intellect, to understand the purpose behind the halachot. You also have to learn the practical halachot. We have to learn, what am I supposed to do on Shabbos? How do I keep kosher? How am I supposed to daven? Am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do that? But when you learn the reason behind it, it makes it even deeper, and it helps you to connect with it on a deeper level. So the same thing in emunah and having faith in Hashem. Whatever a person can understand, they should understand. And we're going to get to it in just a few lines next week. You have to know dala what is it? Dala ashiv la apikos. You have to know what to answer, how to answer a heretic. So here, we're in a war right now, and Palestinian propaganda has been around since the state of Israel existed. And one of the things, if you're Jewish and you even need it for yourself, you have to know how to answer the questions of the Palestinians to yourself. This is one of the things that I decided to focus on, spend a lot of time. I wanted to understand these things. This is an example. So, but the same thing for keeping Torah and mitzvot. If someone comes to you and says, what, here, have this ham sandwich. What's the problem? You mean to tell me that the chicken is kosher? Or here, even a chicken sandwich. Chicken is kosher, but that chicken wasn't kosher. Why can't you eat it? I mean, somebody can logically talk you into something, and you have to understand the reason that you can eat something, you can't eat something. For example, an egg. An egg in Judaism is considered neutral. You can have it with meat and you can have it with milk. But really, it's a chicken. An egg is a chicken. So you would think you could only have it with meat. You wouldn't be able to have it with milk because logically it doesn't make sense. But because we believe that an animal isn't formed until 40 days after it was born, and the egg hasn't begun to fertilize and hasn't begun to turn into a chicken, so you can eat it. And that's also why we don't have a problem with, stem cells, where Christians have a problem with it. That's already a child. As soon as the two cells come together, you have two cells, it's a child. But in Judaism, it takes 40 days to have a child. So that's why also, if there's a drop of blood in the egg, you're not allowed to eat it because that was the beginning of the process of the chicken becoming a chicken. Also, you're not allowed to eat the blood. But you're probably allowed to eat the blood of a chicken b'di'evet, after the fact. For sure, the chatchila, from the start, you're allowed to eat the blood of a fish. But you have to, if you're drinking fish blood, you have to put the scales of the fish next to the cup so that people will know that you're drinking fish blood. Now, this is just an example. I studied smicha. I studied all this stuff in smicha. I studied basar v'chalav, shechting and koshering and all that, a vegetarian, learning how to kosher and everything in the world. And then in the end, I did 2 out of 3 tests. I didn't want to be a rabbi. I didn't want people calling me a rabbi. Didn't want the pressure of being a rabbi. So I didn't do the last test, and I'm never going back to that either. But I did learn some things along the way. Okay, so that's what he's saying, that you have to know how to answer these questions because somebody can come and say something to you, and if you don't have an answer, you might end up falling into a place of apikorsut, which is denying Hashem's existence and even using halacha to support it. Okay, so I want to tell a short story. Last week I was at Sheva Brachot. I think I mentioned it. I think the scab came off today. I got hit by a rock from somebody in the apartment building above where we were sitting. They threw water on us, they threw tissue on us, they threw food on us, and they threw a rock, and it just scratched my arm. So Noga said to me, if you're bringing the guitar and you're going to play music, you better have a story ready for the Sheva Brachot. So I had a story ready. They didn't ask me to tell the story. I did play the guitar. It was a lot of fun. So I'll tell the story now. So it's a story I've probably told before. Reb Zusha, of course, lived in the town of Hanapoli in Ukraine, and he wasn't the rabbi of the town. There was a rabbi. He was a rebbe. What's the difference between a rabbi and a rebbe? A rebbe gives you spiritual advice. The rabbi gives you halachic advice. So even the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when people come to him and say to him, Rebbe, should I do this or that? He'd say, well, I don't know, go ask a rabbi. What are you asking me for? My job as a Rebbe, I don't answer halachic questions. Of course, he could answer a halachic question, but he wanted to make the point. Also, by the way, the Rebbe also davened from a siddur, always davening from a siddur. Do you think the Rebbe didn't know the words in the siddur? He knew everything, but he made a matter of principle to daven from the siddur. Okay, so the Moshe Gross, which is the name I'm making up, fancy kvir, a wealthy guy in Hanapoli, he is having a wedding for his daughter, and he invites Reb Zusha, and he invites the rabbi. And after the wedding, the rabbi is really miserable, and he comes to Reb Zusha and he says, Zusha, I don't understand why you're happy all the time, and I'm sad all the time. So Zusha said, remember Moshe Gross's daughter's wedding? He said, yeah, sure. He said, well, I'll tell you what probably happened. He said, the messenger comes to your door and he says, Mazel Tov, Moshe Gross marrying off his daughter, and he wants to invite you to the wedding. And the rabbi says, ooh, where am I on the list of invited people? And he sees his number 14. He says, what? I'm not first on the list? I'm the rabbi of the town. How can you not invite me first? So he said, you know what? I'm going to show them. I'm going to show up late. And so he shows up late, and he sees that they already did the chuppah. And they even started the meal. And normally he would have sat at the table with the rest of the family, but there was no more space there. And when Moshe Gross sees the rabbi finally shows up, he says, Rabbi, Kvod Harav, let me get you some food. He runs back, but there was hardly any food left, and there's no room at the table, so they seat him at the table of the poor people. And then all of a sudden he looks up and he sees somebody else is leading Birkat HaMazon, the blessing after the meal, and he comes home and he's angry at Hashem, and he's angry at his wife, and he's angry at Moshe Gross, and he's angry at everyone, going all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu. And the rabbi says, yeah, that's exactly what happened. And Zusha says, now let's see what happened when Zusha was invited to the wedding. So he said, the messenger comes to Zusha's house, and he says, Mazel Tov, you're invited to Moshe Gross's daughter's wedding. He says, really? Why would he invite Zusha to the wedding? And the messenger says, I don't know. So Zusha says, well, he probably invited because he needs help setting up. So I'll go early. I'll help set up the chairs, I'll help set the tables. And he said, so Zusha shows up early and helps us set up. And they're waiting to do the chuppah, and the rabbi doesn't show up, so they ask Zusha to be the Masader Kedushin, to run the chuppah. And then afterwards, they're looking for the rabbi, they don't see him, so they ask Zusha to sit at the family at the table. And then they look for the rabbi and they can't find him, so they ask Zusha to lead Birkat HaMazon. And he says, so Zusha was happy before the wedding, and Zusha is happy after the wedding. He said, and that's why the rabbi is miserable all the time, and that's why Zusha is happy all the time. Because how you approach things makes all the difference. When somebody comes, don't worry about your ego. Think about the other person and how you can help them and how you can be happy for them. And Be'ezrat Hashem, be happy like Reb Zusha. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should hear good news with our soldiers in battle and with the government and the decisions that they make and all the governments. Be'ezrat Hashem. In the merit of our learning, we should see good things, revealed good. Be'ezrat Hashem.